Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm swell, Bob. How are you?
I am good, folks. Welcome to Pop Culture SquadCast Live. I am trying to deal with a little bit of a situation. Remove it from this destination and re-add it. Well, we're gonna have to re-add it. We're having a little problem with Facebook tonight for some silly reason, and we're re-adding it, and we'll see what happens now. So some folks won't see it. We are live there. All right. We're live on Facebook as well.
Yay!
We're live everywhere. Welcome to Pop Culture Squadcast Live. Sorry for the little bit of a delay, a little bit of technical stuff because you never know what happens. How you doing, Mike? It's cold. It's getting
I'm
colder.
I'm doing okay. It's getting very windy, which makes sense given the nature of the hurricane that's coming up the Atlantic,
Right.
uh, and is now decimating Jamaica, and Cuba's next.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. Give me 1 second here. Oops. So anyway, I'm back to this. Let's jump in. We have great guests tonight. I'm sorry, the technical problems are confounding me. We have great guests tonight. Calamia and Phil Falco are going to be here. They're going to join us shortly. They are a dynamic duo. They have created so many comics on Kickstarter in the last 5 years that it's unbelievable to me just how prolific they've been and how successful they've been. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. We're also going to talk about their current project, which is really, really exciting. We're going to get to that pretty shortly. We have a few things we want to talk about kind of ahead of time. Let's see here. All right, good. We are actually streaming on Facebook, so that's good. Thanks for that. First thing I want to talk about was some information that came out a couple days ago or yesterday or so, that GalaxyCon Milwaukee, which is the first time GalaxyCon is going to be in Milwaukee, which is supposed to happen not next week, not this weekend, but next weekend, has been canceled. Not going to happen.
And why is that?
Well, I'm going to tell you why, because the easy way to put it is because of the government shutdown.
Really?
Yes. So the announcement reads as this: due to circumstances beyond our control, we have decided to postpone our debut in Milwaukee for our 2025 tour. The recent government shutdown has resulted in massive challenge for our planned inaugural event in Wisconsin, and between additional costs, transportation delays, and economic uncertainty for attendees and vendors who are themselves federal employees, the current climate has resulted in some creative adjustments to our events that we feel have not reflected the kind of showing we wish to present to our attendees in these new markets. So it has been rescheduled for October 30th and through Saturday, November 1st of 2026. They're renegotiating with guests. They're trying to get stuff up. I found out about this because our good friend Mark Fishman was going to be there and will now not be there this year.
And I was so looking forward to getting Mark out of the house.
Yes, well,
even if that meant going to Milwaukee. I have no problem with the city of Milwaukee before people start going nuts on me. However, I'm a North Side Chicagoan, ergo I'm a Cubs fan, ergo there's all that.
Well, I find it interesting that the reason we're talking about it is because first of all, I've been to plenty of GalaxyCons. am a fan of Galaxy Cons in a certain way. I think that they are great for fans of pop culture to get to see um, celebrities. They are a great way for fans of pop culture and comics to get to meet creators. For people to shop and to get merch that they want to get a hold of or find out about. It's I find that the GalaxyCon people who run the GalaxyCon, Mike Broder in charge and all of do a great job taking care of the people who attendees want to go see, whether they're comic creators or celebrities. They do a really good job of taking care of the talent that brings people into the doors. So that's why I like it. They're not necessarily comic conventions. They don't say that they're comic conventions. They are Galaxy conventions. But there are comics and there are comic guests. But again, interesting that they felt that there was enough problems with the logistics of what was going on that they said we're better off not doing this here and now.
I cannot fault anybody for not wanting to have to tackle the airports and the airlines right now.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, I mean, that's just a nightmare. And I was tracking some of it last night, actually, because my daughter had to go pick up some friends at the airport up in New Haven. And it's just flying from Detroit to New Haven. And I was thinking, Detroit's a huge airport. New Haven, not so much. But I don't think size matters when it comes to not having air traffic controllers.
That's true. It's we've kind of mentioned on the show how the government shutdown has affected me personally, but it seems to be we're getting to the point where it's going to be affecting a whole lot of people, and not having a GalaxyCon, while disappointing, is not the type of affecting that this shutdown is going to start having on the rest of the populace of the country, within the next week. It's going to get bad.
Yeah, I mean, every day we get closer to when the bottom's going to fall out.
Sure.
And little bits of the bottom have been falling out, and prices are now visibly going up because of the tariffs, and jobs are being lost by the tens of thousands. Amazon just shit canned what 11,000?
They announced that they're laying off 14,000 people.
14,000. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. These numbers are weird. I don't know what that means. They also said it's because of AI. I don't know that is the case. It's very difficult these days for me, and I appreciate anybody who's listening to my I spend several times a day just shouting into nothingness at some ridiculousness in the news of the day.
You see, I'm old enough now where I can just look up to the heavens and rail my fist, and people will just say, "Oh, it's another nutty old man."
Well, do you get a response at this point?
No. No, I don't. I was in Manhattan most of the day today, and I was when you asked that question, I was thinking of myself in Manhattan doing that, and nobody would care.
I mean, I meant from the heavens. It's just like, you got to.
We're going to get rain on Thursday.
Oh, okay. Good. That's good. So, I mean, that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The next thing, I
feel bad. I have to tell you, on the Milwaukee front, I've never been to a comics show in Milwaukee, and I understand your caveat about this one. I have been to trade shows in Milwaukee because Capital City used to run their trade shows there, and um, I, I have massive affection for their airport because if you lived on the north side or northern suburbs of Chicago for any length of time, you kind of knew that it was so much faster and cheaper and easier to fly out of Milwaukee than it was to fly out of O'Hare Field. Um, but that doesn't even that doesn't enter into it today because there's the airplanes don't work. The whole airline industry doesn't work. You're betting your life and the lives of your loved ones on people who understandably are working two jobs now and drinking way too much coffee. And that's,
Is there such a thing though? Too much coffee?
yeah. Yeah, you're only supposed to have about 300 milligrams of caffeine a day. That's the max. And that's about 3-4 cups of coffee, depending on how strong your coffee is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're one of those people who drink coffee all the time, when I was on broadcast radio, the morning people would do nothing but chain smoke cigarettes, and drink coffee. One of many reasons why I never wanted to do morning radio, although that is where the money is, such as it may be today. You can't drink too much coffee. And we've all seen people just way too nervous and irritable, and we don't want to know if it's because of the coffee, quite frankly, because if it isn't, we got a problem.
Well, let's move on to our next item of the dialogue. Some film and TV news. Some film and TV news that came across the pages on Friday. I almost went to find this out live, but Something is Killing the Children is now going to be made is now as a partnership with Blumhouse Films. They're going to make a live action adaptation of Something is Killing the Children, plus an adult animated series of Something is Killing the Children. We are very, very happy for James and Werther and everybody at Tiny Onion. This, I think, is a great place for something like this to be adapted. I think Blumhouse, has made a good stake in the horror genre and films that would be good for Something is Killing the Children. It's a huge hit. I mean, this book is a huge hit. Super happy for this comic to be adapted, for other people to get to see it. I know this is a conversation I'm going to have with my sons about. Well, tell me about Something is Killing the Children. As soon as it hits like their stuff, but it's good for them. It's good for the comics industry. It's good for film industry.
James has worked so hard establishing his own deal. It's not just publishing; it's the whole thing. And,
yes,
and it's been remarkable and wonderful to watch. And some really good stuff is coming out of that. Therefore, my first response is, great. Maybe he'll get some real money.
Oh, he'll be fine. James is doing fine. I love James a lot. I've known him for probably 10 years now. I remember seeing him at like the first New York after the pandemic, the one after the skipped year, and I saw him and I hadn't seen him in a while. And I said, how you doing? And he's like, I'm doing good. I'm like, yeah, you are. And he just smiled at me. because he's doing great. Like he's making great books. And to be honest with you, I love Something Is Killing Children. I think it's a great book. It's not my favorite, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he makes other things that I like even more. So, but,
No, it's good for him. It's, as you say, it's good for the medium in general, the medium of comics, because whereas we don't really look to movies and television anymore to legitimize comics, we're legitimate enough, thank you. We're probably too legitimate now. It's good for non-universe, mega-universe comics to get out there, and for people to know that those are comics. They're based on comics. People, some of the stuff that's made it to television and to streaming, people who aren't comics fans don't know where they came from, and
sure.
probably couldn't care less. But I would like it if they knew where it all came from. It ain't just superheroes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the cool part. We got one more thing I want to talk about before we bring our guests. They're here. They're in the green room. They're going to listen to this last bit, and then we'll bring them in.
Two more things.
Okay.
Two more things.
Well, let's do yours first, and then we'll hit mine. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't. That's a surprise. Disney finally announced that it was not going to be, they were not going to be picking up Doctor Who for a third season. However, they are doing the unit series next season and a Christmas special next Christmas, 2026, which means that the new Doctor will be introduced in this Christmas special. BBC says, and they've been saying this for months, which is how we knew that Disney was going to punt, that they look forward to taking over Doctor Who once again, and they have every intention to continue doing new material. I have no doubt. Well, I have no doubt that that's true, because it's making them a shit ton of money. And it always has been, and it keeps the reruns going. And the reruns, there's only 60 years worth of reruns, so good. A friend of mine, Larry Sherritt, who ran a comic book store for about 35 years, and one of the first, was also one of the first big Doctor Who fans. Brought material to conventions and ran conventions and all that. And at the very beginning, he said he liked Doctor Who because it was the closest thing to putting a comic book on television. This was the mid-70s.
Sure.
And I agree with him. In point of fact, I think comics have sort of grown into a lot of the types of stories that we had seen introduced on Doctor Who. So I'm glad, and I like tradition. So I'm glad that this is going to continue. Quite frankly, I'm not the least bit upset that Disney's out of the picture. The streamers think in terms of a year or two, and they're out. Maybe 3 if they're lucky. And I don't like that. I didn't like that when we were negotiating with streamers for different properties, and Welcome Jack in particular. I didn't like that aspect of it, but that was where the game was.
Mm-hmm.
So getting a vaunted property like that away from the streamers and taking anything away from the mouse is a good idea as far as I'm concerned. Always has been. I'm a loyal Air Pirate supporter. So I get that. So I did want to pass that along, because I know
that is good news. That is good news.
A lot of you folks out there have and may desire to continue to watch that type of programming.
Great. That's something I didn't have, and I'm glad we have it. Last thing I want to talk about is something that came across my inbox. Substack is a thing that happens, and I'm a subscriber to, I think that works. Okay. I'm a subscriber to Dwayne Swizernski's Substack, and
Mhm.
yesterday was the start of a book campaign, a book giving campaign. I'm going to add this to the thing. It's a holiday book drive for Evie's holiday book drive.
Ah,
Dwayne was a comic book writer and author and novelist. Um, Lost his daughter. They lost their daughter in 2018. It was 7 years ago this week. She passed away. Um, and every year they create a book drive, and it's going on now. And I'm going to put some links in the comments so that you can get to where they are, where you can get to give a book. So what you do is donate a new book in honor of Evie Swarzinski to help the CHLA, which is the Children's Hospital of LA, give each young patient a new book or of their own for every day. So this project that is connected to this is called it's called Literally Healing, and
hmm.
and it is, I'm going to get you here. So each kid in their program gets a new book of their choice every day, and it's theirs to keep. So kids who are dealing with cancer or terminal illnesses or just serious illnesses are given books, and this is a way that we can contribute to it. Um, this Literally Healing became the primary mission of the Evelyn Swarzinski Foundation to keep books flowing to those kids at CHLA. So now through December 8th, it's going on. You can go, there's a list on Amazon where you can just go and buy it, and then it gets sent directly to the organization. Or you can go to a bunch of individual bookshops that also send it directly to CHLA. There's also a link that you can go and just donate money if you want to. I think this is a fantastic program. We want to
There
support
is
this.
there's no higher calling in my book than getting children to read, sharing that experience, starting at the youngest age, and let them evolve both personally and in a literary fashion. I was fortunate enough to be enticed into reading at an incredibly young age. And I was precocious only because my sister was babysitting me. It had nothing to do with me. And I would
Sure.
read these books, and I haven't stopped. So we're talking. I'm 3/4 of a century, and I'm not saying that if you read, you're going to turn out to be like me. No, no, no. The news is much better than that. If you read, you're going to be proficient at thinking.
Yep. Um, I really wanted everybody to be aware of this project, of this campaign. We're going to be, if you stay tuned to Pop Culture Squad's socials, we're going to be talking about it. We're going to continue to promote this book drive. I think it's a great cause, and in the name of a very special person who we've lost. So
Absolutely. But a very good call, Bob. I'm very, very happy and moved that you've done this. Good
well,
call.
I thank you. We're going to bring in our guests now.
Okay.
I'm very excited. As I've mentioned to you, I've met these folks years ago. I've been following their work for years. I'm super thrilled and excited to have them on the show, to ask them a ton of questions, because I have a lot. They are making things happen that are very, very impressive in the industry we live in. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Kat Calamia and Phil Falco.
Oh,
Oh, you're hang on, you're muted there.
Hello, and Phil's not on camera. We really had a good start.
Great
No,
start
it's
after such a
that's
wonderful slideshow.
Well,
Thank you for having
welcome.
either that or Phil looks really weird. I mean, that line and
Oh, he's left
Now
us
he's
completely.
gone. He's like, I can't believe it. I'm sure he'll be ready. That was a cool slideshow. It really makes you realize how many how many
It's
books
a
we do.
lot.
It
It
is.
is.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
it's
Let's try and let
very
him know.
impressive.
I don't know.
He
Phil,
looks
you
about the
can't-
same.
He's
you
now
do it.
become
Phil,
the
if you
Invisible
can't
Man.
if you can't do it, it was funny because we did a podcast yesterday and my video wasn't working. Phil,
We
this
take
now your
turns
option.
being
Yeah.
problems.
That's okay. We don't need to see it. We
I'm gonna
can do it.
try just coming out and coming in, but you guys don't. I'll be right back. And if that doesn't
If
work,
you-
you're just gonna hear my voice.
That's fine. That's good.
Can Phil do Lamont Cranston? That would be great.
It is you guys have built a whole company. And you continue, like, how many oh, look, he's here.
It
Hey,
worked.
Phil,
There
look
we
at that.
go.
You really have, like, eyes and the mouth and
No, let's
He's
go
a
back to the
person.
other. Let's go back to the other one. I like.
I'll show you my beautiful dark screen.
There you go.
Oh, that's good.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so I was just saying, like, you guys have been doing some amazing stuff. I absolutely want to talk about the company and what you guys have done and how you've done it. But first, I want to talk about the current Kickstarter because that's what's going on first. Let's share this in here. So the witching season has launched. I don't know why this is doing this shaky, but anyway, so witching season is launched. It is you got a bunch about halfway through. Tell us about this anthology.
I'm gonna have Phil start with this one because this is a passion project for you in particular.
Awesome.
It is. We love to put out anthologies, and we were hunting for our next topic. And I am always such a big witch fan, especially in this time of year, especially in like the fall. It's my favorite time of year. I love spooky things, and
We should also mention we wanted to do an anthology that wasn't so specific because almost every anthology except Terrology is very specifically for a group of people. So this is one that we're like
Sure.
anyone can join.
yeah, we wanted something
That's fair.
accessible. We often do open calls for our anthologies, and we're like, oh, anyone could tell a really cool witch story. So, when we were trying to come up with our topics, I was like, oh, when's it going to come out? And we were like, it's probably going to be in like the September, October range. And I was like, I remember last year I was like only talking and thinking about witches. I was binging Agatha all along, and I was like, let's do something with witches. And Kat was like, okay, yeah, that sounds fun. And we brought in Michelle as our third editor.
So Michelle Bounder is third editor here. This is not the first time you're working with Michelle on a project, right?
First time sequentially, but we've since worked with her on a lot of projects. So
Okay.
it's funny how sequencing sometimes happens like that. But it was such a great partnership that we worked with her on multiple projects, and she really helped shape this into. I was just like, let's do witches, like all kinds of witches, like magical girls, and like bubbly and bright in addition to like horror. Michelle was like, no,
And it would
let's
look a lot like our other anthology. She's like, I know your guys' stuff. Let's make it look a little different.
yeah, she's like, let's do something different. Let's like really lean into the horror element specifically for
Oh,
witches.
absolutely.
And, it ended up being a really great decision because the anthology has such a cool identity its own. It has like kind of like an edge to it that makes it really cool and sets it apart from our other work. And it's our biggest project to date. It's 150 pages. I think it's 28 unique stories. We have over 60 different contributors, including some really big names in comics that we never thought we would be working with. Oh,
I mean, this is some of them. I'm just gonna read this. This is Heather Antos, Morgan Beam, Tilly and Susan Bridges, Rye Hickman, David Boer, Dan Parent, Stephanie Williams, Jazidia Axelrod, Chrissy Williams, Alex Segura, Philip Sevi, Paulina Ganuccio. I think I butchered that. Skylar Patridge, Sweeney Boo, lots more. You guys are writing stuff. Michelle's writing stuff. That's just a few of the people. Those are some of the recognizable names, but there's tons of people involved in this project. Just
And
fantastic.
You've got
and that's
some
what we like
really
doing
good
with the
people
anthologies
up there.
too. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it. We like
I mean,
mixing it.
like
We
half
like,
of them have been on our show, to be honest with you. Let's put it
oh,
That's
that's
true.
amazing. I love that.
And I just saw Dan last week. Dan Parent,
Awesome.
who now is in like Tierra del Fuego or something.
He's always somewhere.
Every weekend he's on another part of the planet.
We saw him at New York Comic Con a couple of weeks ago, so we had the pleasure.
Yeah.
Now it's nice knowing he's hopping all over the place.
He
Right,
really
I mean,
is.
This is so. How long have you been? You said you've been working on this. How long?
I think less than a year.
Less than a year. I think we opened submissions in the spring of this
Yeah,
year.
like
Excuse me.
March-ish.
Yeah, I feel like around like March, and I think we curated the anthology in May. I think submissions were closed. We reviewed all the submissions, which were, probably 3 or 4 times more submissions than we'd ever gotten before. It was
We had
really
over
big.
500,
Yeah, over
which we read
500
all.
It was
That's cool.
it was
That's
great
great.
seeing all the excitement, but also it was like very daunting going into that. So that's why this ended up being our biggest anthology yet, because there was just so many great stories, and we were like, we got to fit this, and we got to fit this in.
Not
Even
include
ended
the
up-
invitees either. Those are just like open submissions, and then we had, I would say, at least 7 invitees,
Mhm.
and
I think
that didn't include us.
Yeah, I think it worked out to like a third, a little less than a third of the contributors to the final book were invitees or ourselves editors, and then the rest, the second 2/3 were all the people who applied through the application form. So it ended up being a pretty natural split. But we've been pretty hard at work on it since like the beginning of the year, and it's thankfully like every team has really brought their A game, and been keeping to our schedules for the most part, and so far, knock on wood, this has been like such a smooth process. We're really hoping we can like knock this out, send it to print like very shortly after the Kickstarter, and get it in people's hands. So really been such a pleasure. And the cover artists we got on here, it's just like we definitely have to shout out Michelle, because she knows how to hustle. She knows a lot of people, and she really pushed us and connected us with a lot of really awesome people.
I think that's great. I mean, I'm super excited about it. I backed it. I really love it.
Thank you.
If you are watching or listening to this, in the comments right now, there is a link to the Kickstarter where you can back it and get behind it. There's, like I said, there's 16 days left, and I have all the faith that you're going to meet your goal and probably go past that as you usually do. I want to switch for a second and kind of talk about you guys. I feel like, knowing you, that you epitomize the term "just do it." Like it's daunting. It can be scary to put yourself out there, to say, hey, we're going to make this comic, or we're going to get some people behind us, and we're going to pay our creators. We're going to do the things we want to do. But you just there's no stop in you guys.
There is not. There's just let's do more projects. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just me and Phil's mentality. We love to work hard and see a product after that, and again, just try to give opportunities to as many people as you can. People who might never worked on a project, and then have like Heather Antos and Alex Segura be part of a project. And for us, it's just we love comics, and yeah, that is the answer. Just do the projects you want to do. And obviously, it took a long time to get here. You don't start making 3 projects. You don't do it like Patch and us do, where we do 3 projects a month. I think Pat's like up to 4 projects a month, and overnight. You have to grow and do that. We've been hustling on Kickstarter. I've been on Kickstarter for like almost 10 years. And that was like, not every month I was making a project. I think once a year I was doing like a Like Father, Like Daughter. And then Phil, last 2 years, when did we start doing it monthly? Like one project monthly? I want to say it was 2 years ago.
It's been about 2 years probably. And, it was stop and start. We would do like a stream of projects like in a row, and then we'd be like, all right, let's take like this month off and we'll build another project. So,
but after the Ever Afterverse, like once we built that a lot, which is our, fantasy mature line, that's when we realized I think we have to do them at least once a month to withstand that.
And it was very natural at that point. We had introduced so many different series, and then when you put out an issue 1, it's like the issue 2's got to come at some point, and at a certain point you go from how do we find a project a month to how do we fit in all of the
That's
projects
right.
and the ongoings? And it's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. We
Like
were
a
sitting down
publisher.
and figuring
Right,
out the
exactly.
exactly. Yeah, we were figuring out the first 6 months of 2026, and we were like, "Are we going to be able to fit everything?" It's like, all right, how long can we wait between issues for this series and this series? So, just like Kat said, natural growth. Not jumping ahead of yourself too quickly, and like you said, Bob, just doing it, just like putting out the projects that you're excited about and doing different things. We always try to. We have a very diverse palette. We're interested in a lot of different things and a lot of different topics. So we try to put out a lot of different books to appeal to different people and to give our audiences like a lot of different things to consume.
One of the things about doing an anthology that furthers the cause of humanity, in my book, is that there's opportunities to expose new talent to the masses. You're not just giving them an opportunity to get published. You're giving the comics reader, the overall community, a chance to experience new stuff. Some people that they don't know anything about. And what's good about that is that once a relatively new talent, writer, artist, comes in order to get attention, they have to tell people what they've done. Why am I great? Well, look at this. You're giving them the opportunity to show something at the look at this point. And that, folks, is the future of comics. It's the future of everything. It's you prime the pump. So I love anthologies for that reason, among many others. Even when they're done by Marvel and DC, these days, you see a lot of that, a lot of new talent in there. And it's great because some of those folks are going to really click. And quite frankly, some of those who don't should. But that's show business.
And I totally agree. That's what we love about them.
I wanted to focus on that a little bit too. Like, so what's attractive to you about anthology? I mean, we talked about that, but as a project on Kickstarter, I mean, you guys know how Kickstarter works, and you've figured out how to make it work for you. What is it about anthologies on Kickstarter that works?
It's everyone sharing, honestly. It's new talent that are telling all their family and friends about it. And honestly, that's a big push. It's obviously talent that already has a social media following that want to get their stuff, and that really helps anthologies. So I think if you present your anthology correctly, you're going to have a successful anthology. I think the pitfalls I've seen with anthologies that don't do well is having such a massive budget and not being able to prove that you could do that massive budget. And then the flip side is not showing enough for your book. I think a lot of people are like, oh, here's an anthology, but none of it's made. For us, it's always really important to at least have one panel from each story to show, look, this is what it's going to look like. Because how do you sell the anthology if you don't see the look of it? I think that's the biggest pitfall I've seen.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's a visual medium. You need to be visual. You need to see it. It's not just an idea. And I think that's part of it.
And you have to show those visuals to other people in order to make a living, in order to make a career, if that's what you want. 100%. So here are the opportunities to do so. And quite frankly, for decades, anthologies were anathema to the comics publishing business in the United States. I've spent the last half century in awe of 2000 AD and all the great talent that came out of there. When they started, it was like, holy crap, I've never seen anything like this before. That's what I want out of an anthology. And the cool thing is, in an anthology, you get so many different types of stories. What works for you might not work for the next person, but the next person might really love something that doesn't work for you, and it gives everybody a shot.
That's something we're always very conscious of when we're putting these anthologies together. We want a variety in terms of, level of experience in terms of the actual stories that we have in there, subgenres, tones. But the curation process is a very long process for us because we'll go through everything that was submitted. We'll kind of like, pick our must-haves, and then we'll look at it all and be like, do we have enough newcomers? Do we have enough veterans? Do we have enough people in the middle? Do we have enough stories that are a bit more light? Do we have enough stories that are a bit more dark? Do we have thematically heavy ones, historical stories? There's this big long checklist that we kind of make up as we go on, and we're just like, are we going to have a anthology that there's going to be a lot of stories? No one person is going to have every story in an anthology, most likely, but do we have enough stories that someone reading this is definitely going to have the majority of stories that they enjoy?
And I'm scrolling through this, and it just keeps going.
I know.
It's just
Putting that
so.
page together, I watched the whole movie while we did that because I was telling Phil,
I believe it.
I got to do something because we were in between it. Like we literally the day before we launched, we had plans in the morning, and then I was like, oh, I'll go home and do the page or whatever. But I was like, oh, we have this movie in our list. Do you just like want to watch a movie? Well, I do it because Phil had already finished some of the photoshopping at New York Comic Con, so he was able to kind of finish some of the stuff while we were like setting up, and then I still had this portion of the page, and I was like, oh, this is gonna take me like 2 hours. Let's just watch a movie.
Oh man, it is something. And like I said, I'm very excited for this project. I want to come back a little bit, and I want to talk about like kind of the origin of Lifeline Comics. But even before we get to that, what made you fall in love with comics? Because you don't do what you're doing if you don't love comics. So what was that?
Kat would always start these questions, so I'm going to start.
Do it. I'm excited. Well, I know it, but I'm excited to see how you started.
All we do is talk about comics. I've always been a big fan of like, superhero media. As a kid, I watched like Batman the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, all of that religiously. I really enjoyed like the Tim Burton Batman movies and the Spider-Man movies. And then in middle school, like I would go to the library after school and wait for my siblings to get out of the elementary school that got out like an hour later, and they had a whole graphic novel section. And one day I would just like pick up like a Batman graphic novel and I would read it, and I'd be like, oh man, I feel like I'm not supposed to be reading this. Like I feel like this is like so much like darker and more. I think I was reading like The Killing Joke at the time. Like that was one of the first comics I picked up, and I was like, this feels like more twisted than I am supposed to be reading. And I think
it's a hilarious.
Anybody's supposed to be reading this, but
real. And then, from there it would expand outward. I'd be like, oh, let me read more Batman comics. And then it'd be like, let me read more DC comics. I liked The Killing Joke at the time. It's like, oh, let me read like Swamp Thing because I like Alan Moore. And then from there, it's like, let's read Marvel. Let's go to indie. And I just like comics are so they pull you in that way. It's a place where there's such a unique opportunity for all kinds of storytelling, including kind of stories that you really don't get to see elsewhere, especially at the time, especially when we were younger. And there was a lot more selectivism with like media and adaptations. So, that really pulled me into that world and never really let go of it from that moment.
Yeah, and for me, I've had comics in my life all my life. My dad would like read me bedtime stories with like Silver Age Superman. So then after that, we were in second grade when the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies came out, and I watched that and I was like, oh my God, I love this. Like I love Spider-Man. So my dad would go on eBay a lot to go buy those Superman books. So he'd be like, oh, if you want to buy a few books, you can too. So I'd buy Spider-Man, and then I was watching X-Men Evolution, and I really loved Kitty Pryde. So I was like, I need to get Kitty books. And then I realized how much I like comics. Anytime I'd go to the city, I'd go to Midtown Comics. I'd be like, oh my God, I gotta like get Dazzler, and I really liked Spider-Girl. And then in 8th grade, I made a pull list at my local comic store that I go to now, and I'm 31 now, and been a Wednesday warrior ever since. So the reason I got into comics, I do love the visual medium of it. Like I'm a very visual learner. Like I always have to like see something in front of me to kind of like imagine what's going on. And I think that's probably why I really liked it. And the reason I continue to fall in love is just how much you could do with it. There's that expression of, in a film you have a budget, and obviously in comics you do for the different writers or artists, but like if the artist could draw what you want, it's just your imagination. So there you could do whatever you want in a comic that you can't really do in maybe other visual mediums. So, and obviously other visual mediums use comics to make their shows and their movies. So, but yeah, I just feel like there's the possibilities are endless. And I think now in modern age, people don't even know they're reading comics, and they're reading comics. Like manga is a comic, webtoon is a comic. And I think I talked to somebody recently, and maybe it was a fan, maybe it was like a friend. And I said, comics are webtoons are comics. Like, no, I don't read comics. I read webtoons. It's like, but it's just a comic book. They're the same thing. Different medium, like a different way to tell it, but they're still comics. So many millions of people are reading comics and they don't even know it.
The name of our medium has been a misnomer since day one, and we've had to live with that. Every once in a while, and again, I'm just talking about the United States. Every once in a while, somebody does do a comic book, and it works, and it's fabulous. And the most important comic book that was ever published were the first 23 issues of Mad Comics. And I still maintain that is the pinnacle of the comic book experience in the United States. I wouldn't mind seeing some more comic, but we're seeing not less superheroes, although they do tend to be more of the same superheroes over and over again. We're just seeing a much wider variety of types of stories. And that is what we should always be about. You know, they don't just do doctor stories on television. 50 years ago, they didn't just do Westerns on television. You know, people have an appetite for new things, and you'll never discover where to go next unless you try.
100%.
Absolutely.
So I love those answers. Those are great answers. How did you guys get together to do what you're doing? You both were writing your own independent, self-published comic stuff, and now you do this together. How did that come about?
You want to start, Phil?
Sure.
I love that Phil gets to go first tonight.
I know.
I like that she gets to decide who goes first, but
I'm so always like jump in. So I was like, no,
yeah, that's
you
true.
go.
That's fair.
Imagine we would also just stumble on our words if we're like, who goes?
You're the traffic cop that we need. I'll take us back a little further. We met completely unrelated to comics because Kat went to school with a friend of mine who I went to high school with. She went to college with a friend of mine who I went to high school with, and I met up with her for lunch, and I saw Kat, and I was like, oh, you review comics on YouTube. I've seen you, because there's a finite number of people who talk about comics, and people who read comics often very much try to seek them out because they want to hear other people's opinion about the comics that they're reading. So, we talked about comics for like a hot second, and then, we became friends, but didn't talk about comics all that much. We would be movie buddies. We'd go to movies all the time. We found out we lived really close together. Over the years, just became better friends. And I knew Kat was publishing her own comics. She had 2 series at the time, 2 superhero books with a small publisher, and that she would crowdfund through Kickstarter. And then in 2019, 2020, I was like, oh, we don't really talk about comics, which is weird, but we both really like them. And, I'd like to publish a comic at some point. I studied writing. It's something that's always been in my bones. And she was like, oh yeah, you should. And she gave me some of the benefit of her experience.
Just do it.
Run a few Kickstarters. She told, just do it. She broke out the Nike shoes and told me to just do it. And I published my first book in 2020 in March when the world shut down. And it ended up doing pretty well at the time. I think that there was kind of a need for comics when Diamond stopped distributing at the time, before we got used to that happening. And Kat and I were both publishing our own comics and cheering each other on for about a year or two. And we were talking about conventions, because this was during the pandemic, when the conventions eventually started letting people in again. We wanted to table together and split the cost of a table. And we had the idea wouldn't it be fun if we had a crossover between our books, between our main books, that we could sell in the middle of the table, and then people could buy our individual series as well. So we wrote a one shot, and to this day it's still one of our favorite things we've written. It's still something we love to push on conventions and on Kickstarters. It's very fun, one and done that it ties into both of our oldest series. And then after that, we were like, okay, that was like a really great experience. Why don't we write something original together? And we made Slice of Life, our webcomic, our webtoon. And after that, we were just like, okay, like, once was a fluke, twice means that this is actually like a really good partnership. Let's keep working together. And it's all kind of just snowballed from there. And now we have now we're a publisher and we write pretty much everything together. And the books that we do write separately that we started without each other, we're each other's editors and are very actively involved in shaping them. So it was a slow partnership that started as just like being good friends and having respect for each other, and then grew into like, oh, like we actually found out we work together really well too.
You said it all. That's the origin story.
And it worked out well, because if it turned out you didn't work well together, we all wouldn't be here right now.
No.
That's true. That wouldn't work out very well.
You wouldn't be Ringo Award-winning creators. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about Transphoria, Ringo Award-winning Best Anthology. Super excited for you guys. I was happy to be in the room when it happened. What was that like? What kind of validation did you get from that? I mean, we all know that awards are weird, but it's got to feel great, man.
It did. We were in the room the year before for Herology for the same category for Best Anthology, and I remember at the time, like, it felt like a long shot. It was just like, oh, we're so honored to be nominated. And this time, like, we went in and we were like, I feel like we have a chance. Like, are we crazy? Do we have a chance? Like, can we win this? And when you're sitting in the chair and the categories getting closer and closer, you just kind of like there's like an electricity like in the room, and you're just like, oh man, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And then for our category, before they opened the envelope and read it, they accidentally went to the next slide. So we saw it before we heard the word, and we were like, are we crazy? Did we just see that? Is that wishful thinking? So like, it was so humbling and validating. And my brother was there, who was the lead editor on Transphoria and who is trans, and was very much like the driving force for us doing that anthology. So it was really great getting to share that with him as well. And it's just it's really validating. Like you said, like, there's politics to awards and all of that, but it's the recognition meant a lot in the moment and still means a lot. We're still riding that high a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, and we had a feeling it would happen only because not because we were like not humble about it, but I got an email asking how I pronounced my name, and they don't usually say your name.
I didn't do that the year before.
Yeah,
so we were like, that might mean something. And then, like I said, like going up there, we were like, maybe that means something. And then in the room, you're just like, does it mean something? Like, you're like,
yeah, like you obviously question too. You don't know if what means whatever. You're just like, oh, maybe. And then the year before, we kind of, you kind of know that people send in videos, so they find out in advance somehow. So there's always little inklings that you can find out, at least with the Ringos. I don't know about the Eisners, but the Ringos, I feel like there's sometimes you could find out if you're going to win or not. But like with Herology, I think as the night went on, we kind of had less and less of a feeling we'd win. Here, there was enough signs that it was going to happen, which helped because then we prepared a speech. Because Herology, we did not prepare a speech enough. And this one, we were like, oh, no, let's prepare.
We rehearsed our speech several times this time. And Herology, we had like our loose talking points. And we're like, oh, if we win, like we'll figure it out on the spot. So,
but we didn't know Brent was going to be there, so that was cool. That we had another who was a contributor
to Transphoria.
Yeah, so it was nice that they were there. And obviously, once we found out, we're like, oh, why don't you be part of the speech too? So that was fun.
That's awesome. That's great.
When you won the Ringo, did you immediately see a spike in sales? Did people contact you looking for the book and stuff? So that really helped.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
We've seen Transphoria moving since then, like, more like, I'm not saying it's flying out the door, but we've definitely gotten a big uptick in sales, which has been really great. And
it's been flying out the door like as a series, but sure. Like the Ringo
it always sells very well. The Ringo has led to an uptick, which is great, and we rushed to be like put Ringo award winning in all of the listings and everywhere.
Sure,
so.
You should, as you should. You are award winning creators.
Well, also marketing counts.
Mm-hmm. And you guys know.
I'm not happy to say that. Everything should just exist
Wait.
on its own value. I am reminded that for years, and to a certain extent to this very day, the Oscars, the Academy Awards, were pre-arranged. They had a big dinner and they just gave out the awards. There weren't nominees or that sort of thing. And the studios would decide. They'd get together and decide who got those early Oscars. We don't do that. And sometimes the best way to find out what's really cool that you might not have seen is to look at those award listings and also, the runners up. I mean, those who were nominated.
Nominations are pretty inclusive of good
Yes.
stuff for the most part. I mean, and that's one of the
Yes.
things I think that and I said award shows are weird. People get weird about them at times, but there was a time about 8 to 10 years ago where everything was just. It felt that publishers were pushing things, and it felt unorganic. I think that what we see in terms of what's winning and what's getting nominated is actually representing the best in the field, for the most part. We're even starting to get letterers right, which is always a problem for me. They're like, give the award to the letterer to a letterer. But
go figure.
But no. So I mean, you guys put together great stuff. We have a question that I wanted to throw out there. Something that's important. You guys, you talked about the current witching season is being kind of not directed, but a lot of your stuff is inclusive. And how important is that to be a part of what you guys do as an organization, a company?
I'd say it's pretty much a cornerstone to what we do. We, Kat and I are both queer creators, and one of our mission statements for Lifeline Comics is to put out stories that we want to see in the world, and that we've always wanted to see in the world, and that maybe don't have as much ease coming out elsewhere, or historically haven't. So one of our first projects we did together was Bi Visibility. Kat's bisexual, and we would talk about bisexuality all the time, and the challenges unique to bi people. And at the time in 2021, I remember we would often talk about how little bisexual representation there was back then, and things are a little better now in the representation department, and even in the comic space in particular, more so than films and TV, I would even say. But then also there's new and different challenges now compared to back then. And we started with that Bi Visibility, and we had such a great time, and saw such success with that we were like, we already had our webtoon Slice of Life, which is also a queer romance. Like I said earlier, my brother is trans, and he helped us edit Bi Visibility, and wanted to work with us on a trans non-binary anthology. And at that point, we had been putting out so many queer books, and we're such big fans of queer stories, that we were like, we want to make sure we do this at least once a year, do an anthology specifically around a queer identity. We did a asexual, aromantic anthology last year. My fiance is demisexual, and we partnered with Jeremy Whitley on that one as an editor, and that one was really rewarding, and we're in the process of putting that together right now. And then with Witching Season, like we said earlier, we wanted the topic to be extensible to anyone, that anyone could submit a witch story. But if you scroll through the page, you'll see that there's a lot of inclusion there.
I love
there's
it.
a lot of queer stories. I think queerness often seeps into what we write as queer creators, and I think witches are a topic that, not exclusively queer, can be pretty queer. So if that's way in pretty easily.
And not just queerness, we try to do inclusion for other things too, for people of that either race or, again, identity, to be able to tell that story. That's something we did with the comic shop in particular, is that we had a pretty much all Black creative team be able to tell this story about a queer Black woman who owns a comic shop. So we want to give opportunities to everybody. And again, everybody, we truly believe that, we will have white straight people writing stories as well. We really want everybody to be included in our submissions, but inclusion in particular, voices that are not heard as much, is really important to us, queerness and otherwise.
mean, you guys have created a safe space. You've created a welcoming, realm for people to be able to tell their stories.
I want to talk about that.
Go ahead.
We are in an environment where not just transsexuals, but the queer cultures overall are under attack. They always will be, because we still have religion that is more hateful than productive. That'll always happen. But right now, we're also seeing a lot of book banning. Not just in schools, and I can understand why that would not necessarily be a market you'd want to put all your chips into right now. School library sales, although they can be very lucrative. Do you feel any weight of doing queer culture stories that might get that type of negative reaction, that might become a thing?
Tremendously so. I think that we do actually sell to schools pretty often with our anthologies, particularly the queer anthologies. We try to make all ages, like middle grade at least, accessible to help young kids who are trying to figure out their identity. That's always a mission statement of ours, but you do face opposition, especially in this day and age. And like you said, I think unfortunately for the foreseeable future, there is a culture against what we are and what we represent. And
That's right.
I'll say one benefit of the work that we do in the space that we're in is we see mostly positivity. We mostly see people excited to see the representation that our books offer, and that's a big reason that we put out all of the books that we do. And especially when we travel, like when we go to Florida, for example, like you see that people are excited to see, Transphoria or Aces and Arrows in New York, but in Florida, they're like, oh my God, I can't tell you how much I needed to see this. Like,
yes.
Ties into that book banning idea you saw. It's just like policing what people can see and talk about and be and consume and offer in different places. So it's essential. Like we're quote unquote big in the indie space, but we're still a small publisher. We don't have restrictions of a big company that has to appease shareholders or anything. We could put out the books that matter to us and put them in.
But that just means that you have a chance of getting away with it.
I like getting away with it.
You bet. You bet, because it's the only way you affect change. And it takes a long time. And people have to stand up, not just for themselves, but we have to stand up for each other in order to achieve that. And,
yeah, and we
as storytellers, we have an obligation. Please.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we also have a book banning story enriching season that was very important to us because of what's been going on and talking about book banning through witches, which I thought was interesting. So it's definitely on a lot of people's mind.
Oh God, yeah. It started out as a very depressing thing. Every year you'd see the list of banned books and you're going like, what?
That's what I'm reading this year.
What? I mean, it's like if there's 50 banned books, there's going to be at least 40 whats that come out of my mouth. But if they're not there, we're not doing our jobs. We're not expanding the medium. We're not expanding our audience, and that we're also not giving the support that we need to give to other human beings for who they are.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
We've talked about a bunch of things. We've talked about Kickstarter quite a bit. Kat, you have a side business in giving people advice on how to kickstart. What is it about Kickstarter I'm going to preface this with Mike and I have had these conversations, and he's said to me in not so many words that if something like Kickstarter existed, First Comics may have been different than what when it ended up with at the time. What is it about Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general that has, in the world we live in today, made it possible?
I think there's always stories that people want, right? I mean, especially like the queer stories we tell. Like honestly, there's been especially GL, like it was really interesting to see the market is very BL heavy, in like the direct market. And it's what publishers believe is going to sell more, which in the direct market it does. Like because you have different audiences. You have the young girls who like it, you have gay men that like it. There's just a lot of more opportunity. And GL is usually, especially like wholesome GL is mostly just queer women that read it. So there's a little bit of a smaller pool. But for something like Kickstarter, where female leads do extremely well, and lesbian or and queer women content do really well. It's cool to see this kind of niche audience gravitate to Kickstarter because it's like almost the opposite of direct market. Like the direct market is like, yeah, stuff like Geiger does really well, like these big blockbuster male leads. And maybe a Spider Gwen will be a little lower in the charts, like after 5 years or whatever that initial run came out. So to see Kickstarter really pioneer, people that aren't as seen in the direct market, I think that's really important. But even taking that away, because obviously other stories that do well in direct market can do well in Kickstarter too. I think it's just like the opportunity of no holds barred. Like you could do whatever you want and tell the story you want. And literally no one can tell you you can't. And you'll find out if you have a market for it. Maybe you don't have a market for it, or you're not marketing it in a way that people can understand what you're marketing.
Right.
You'll find out their Kickstarter.
The crowdfunding in general has changed our lives. Hasn't changed the economy very much yet, but it might. It changed our lives in the comics field, in the comics world, because it proved immediately that there is a market, there is an audience for stories that the day before the publishers who were around the day before said, "Oh no, we can never sell that." And we'll start with women's comics because 50 years ago, the belief was that women and girls did not read comics except for maybe Archie, and which was bullshit. I mean, X-Men were huge, Star Trek was huge. I mean, all of that, but it got women. I don't want to say out of the closet because now that has, in this context, it has a different meaning, but it does.
We'll say out of the closet, but we know what you mean.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's great because all we had to do was rip off that Band-Aid and see what was underneath. And I love that. Crowdfunding made all of that happen. We know that there's an audience that we were not serving that was eager for the content.
And honestly, you'll see a Transformers book, which obviously still is a big IP, do better than a Batman book on Kickstarter. Just because
sure.
like you like the niche. Like Kickstarter is all about niche. So and show that niche has literal value, millions and millions of dollars of value. So that I think is very fascinating. Like honestly, the nicher the better in some regards.
And also premium items. I think Kickstarter has a reputation for, that's where you go to get like your nice perfect bound book or like a really special hardcover book. Like, and just by and large, indie comics, tend to be of really great production quality on Kickstarter. And, what we know that on Kickstarter, we being the entire market on Kickstarter might be selling for a higher rate than you'd see in the direct market. But, that goes into doing your guerrilla style indie production. There's a lot of cost in that, but also goes towards making a product that, is of a higher, paper quality or what have you than what you might be able to get like for the lowest common denominator price in a store.
You mean the black doesn't come off on your fingers?
No.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Those
I still have that every.
those 2020 Marvels were just all black backs and all over my fingers.
At least they have. I'll give them they've at least improved on that, but I think that was at least 4 to 5 years. I want to say
It was
of
terrible.
black ink on my fingers from Marvel.
I know the technical reasons for that. What I don't understand is why it wasn't fixed immediately.
I
It
think it's
wasn't.
just the cheapness, and no one. I mean, people complain, but not enough people complain. I think people are just like, "Oh, I guess this is what I get," you know. And I think maybe they thought this is how the prices could be lower. I don't know. Again, people were complaining, obviously, but like, I don't
For
know. People
over
hate stuff.
100 years, the newspaper edition of Variety, the show business trade paper,
Mhm.
the ink would just, it's like your hands were silly putty. It just merged with your body, just leafing through it. And it occurred to me many decades ago that whenever that new issue of every week, that the Variety, there's like thousands and thousands of people who earn six-figure salaries who have just black ink all over. And when they finally switched to real presses and color and all of that, they used that as a selling point. It's like, hey, it doesn't come off in your hands anymore. It's all of a sudden Variety is publishing M&Ms. I mean, it was great because they acknowledged the joke and said, we hear you. We went past that, but it was what it was, and that's kind of funny.
I want to get back to. I want to come back one more time to witching season, but before that, can we talk about comics for a second? I want your guys' opinion. So I have been struggling with crossover headaches. I know you guys read. So, what is your opinion of things? I'm asking this question. I probably don't know the answer, but I really enjoy crossovers where in like we're talking about licensed books, the Marvel DC for the most part, where there's a huge event and all the characters get involved. I'm fine with that. What they're doing right now that I can't stand is I don't want to have to go buy 18 different things to find out what happened. Just give me a limited series. I'll read it. I'll read the crap out of it. Even if you mention it in whatever's going on, but don't make me have to go chase the story. What's your opinion on that?
I agree with you. I think
she gave you permission, Phil.
I am.
did give me
I'm trying to give him a first shot. It's just let's see.
she traffic got me. I agree
I'm
with you.
trying not
I
to
think
say it
that
though. I'm trying to visualize it for you.
I like this system of yours. I think you should use that on every podcast.
I will. That's why.
I like the event itself, the primary event, to be contained to a limited series. I don't mind tie-ins. I think that, I always think back to Blackest Night. I think that was like still probably my favorite like big event comic. And I liked the main event so much that I was like, I want to hunt down and I want to make sure I read as many tie-ins as I can because I was excited about it. But I don't know if I would have been as excited if it's like you have to read every single tie-in, otherwise you're not going to understand, and you have to read like 20 issues to get the full story, otherwise you're missing out. So that's kind of my ideal when it comes to a big event.
But 20 issues, particularly in 1 month, that's $100.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a lot of time. People who have the money and are so inclined to spend it may not have the time to enjoy it, to go through all that. And that's okay. We can learn from that, but that's all we do now. I mean, certainly Marvel and DC, but to a lesser extent, some of the other publishers as well. We just do these big, stupid events, and they're all the same. And by now, it's really clear they're just trying to dig into your wallet. They're trying to take your wallet, as is everybody else. So I'm not putting them down for being particularly evil. just obnoxious.
I mean, it feels that way. Like this is the thing. Like there's Marvel and DC are, as much as they are, the big bad in the world or of comics. We love our indie stuff. They're putting out some good books. There are some definite good books, and I hate the fact that they get interrupted because we have to do this. It goes back. It goes back to the first big crossover. I mean, it goes back to Crisis on Infinite Earths. There were the Crisis tie-ins, which just meant, hey, there's stuff going on in this other series. You might want to know about it, but it wasn't. You didn't need it for the most part, except the weird Flash stuff.
I'll say like something like Revelations right now with X-Men.
Right. So that's
I'm
where I
not
am.
like, yeah, I don't like what Revelations did. I really loved Exceptional X-Men. It's probably ended because of it, and I was like, oh man, that really sucks. So that was something I really was really enjoying, and now we
Don't
have
say
this
that because it's the only regular X-Men title I read.
Oh no, I will tell you, I think it definitely was canceled. Like it's the only one that I know. I hate it, and I agree. That's the only one I like too because I'm a huge Kitty fan. I love the way it was written.
Yeah, me too.
And Revelations, I do think literally ended it, and I'm really upset about it because they seem like they had a future story. I think something like DCKO is where I think is the exception, and I'm more of a Marvel fan. I know, like, which is crazy. Like it's crazy how much of a DC, like, oh yeah, go DC lately I've been, but DC's for me has been doing a little bit more right, even though I'm a hardcore Marvel fan.
Sure.
I think DCKO, when they do the tie-ins, you don't necessarily need to pick it up. Like they will explain it to you. Like, yeah, should you've read Superman to get to DCKO, you'll get a little bit more story, but they explained it all in DCKO. You get a little bit more in Justice League Unlimited this week, but you get the full story in DCKO. And I think they've been doing a much better job of what I want to see with events. Because I also want to see events do something, right? I want to see them affect other titles.
Here's the thing that I give you on that. I don't. First of all, I don't care for DCKO at all. I have no desire.
Which is understandable.
But to go back, the We Are Yesterday storyline that DC did, where I don't read World's Finest, but I do read Justice League. So now what am I going to do? I'm getting half a story.
Yeah. Or you have to pick up World's Finest, and then it's like, oh, that sucks. And I mean, luckily in that circumstance, at least it's not two writers having to come together. At least Mark Waid was writing both series, so it's like, oh, I guess he has a plan. It really sucks when you're like, let's say it's a Gail Simone and a Mark Waid, and you're like, oh, Gail Simone had this plan, and Mark Waid had this plan, and now there's this random crossover. I think that's more frustrating for me. But yeah, also budget-wise, like you don't want to pick up an extra book, and they're just trying to sell you on World's Finest because the sales are probably a little low, you know?
Sure. I mean,
one would think. Don't underestimate the ability to the publisher's desire to make a lot of money and please the talent at the same time. And I don't mean that financially, I mean that aesthetically. So there may be decent business reasons, but I think Marvel and DC keep on swallowing their own tail. And I want to see new stuff. I'm all the big crossovers. I don't want to say that you can't do a good one. You can, but I've been reading KO, not absolutely everything. And the thing that I find the most interesting is not the KO series. That's just another contest of champions. Who the hell cares? We see that every day. But the tie-ins, how did we get all these people off the earth and whatever? Some of those tie-ins are really good, and I'm not used to that. So, it's the other way around. It's backwards.
So, it feels like Blackest Night. It's been 15 years.
That's right. So I am kind of, wow. Well, okay. I mean, the stunt sucks, but the other stuff is great. So
just give us story, make something mean something. I think that's something like you see the Doom story going on right now at Marvel. I dropped it after one issue, and guess what? I'm reading Fantastic Four, and it doesn't even matter. You should be reading Fantastic Four, and the Doom event probably should matter a little bit. And if they that's how little that event matters, that the main book it would matter to doesn't tie into it anymore. That's crazy.
I have become such a fan of Ryan's.
Oh yeah, his Fantastic Four,
which I think is just his work is stunning on that. That I do read the Doom miniseries, was the 9-issue thing, out of respect for his work, because he pulls it off. Now, that's not the way it always is in storytelling, but that's how it works here. The rest of it, I don't think I've read hardly any of the other Marvel tie-ins to the Doom thing. I do like the idea of Doctor Strange being the Sorcerer Supreme
We'll
of
see where that
Asgard.
goes. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I'm just glad Runaways came back because they had a Doombot on their team. So I'm like, all right, at least I got Runaways for 5 issues.
I mean, Runaways I was very happy to see Runaways back.
I love Rainbow is the
Oh.
only writer I could say that actually is on the same level as Brian K. Vaughan when it comes to those characters. I love her run on Runaways.
I agree. It is it's one of my favorite series. It's funny because I had Brian on a couple of panels this at Baltimore, and we talk about everything, and you forget just how much he's done. You know, for half a second you're like, Runaways, like
Right.
how much that meant, and then like somebody throws Ex Machina, you're like, oh yeah,
Oh
that
yeah,
too.
from 1,000 years ago.
I'd asked. I said it was a dystopian panel, and I said, okay, so everybody say what your favorite dystopian story is, and you can't say Y the Last Man, and everybody was disappointed.
And and that's another series that's been so long that he like to have a writer that has had so many successes. I sometimes forget about Why the Last Man. I'm like, but Paper Girl Saga. Oh yeah, Why the Last Man. That's what created his career.
Right, exactly.
That's true. I had a similar experience at the same convention, but not on panels you were on, because you and I think I only did one panel.
We only did one together.
So the billions of panels that I did, I was really lucky because I got Louise Simonson on several of them. And now I don't know Louise
My Power
forever.
Pack heart.
I had Louise on too, so there's that too.
I understand. I had Louise and Walter though. All right, we don't need to. We can put it back in our pants.
Sherry wins. Okay, let's be honest. You had them all weekend.
Well, that's true. That's very true. And it was a wonderful experience. But what you were saying about, I forgot about how much.
Right.
Louise Simonson, you can. The more you think about it, the longer the list comes, and the more in awe I am of her phenomenal capabilities.
Yeah. And I feel like she's done recent stuff on like the Marvel,
She did
nostalgia
she did the Jean Grey book recently.
Jean Grey, I think she did Power Pack when that did the nostalgia
She did
book.
the renew.
Yes.
Power Pack came back.
So,
She did that, and she also they did some of the those let's bring back people and find a minute and tell a story in a minute that happened. She did that with Walter on an X Factor thing, and she's still I talked to her. I said, "Are you doing anything right now?" And she's not working on anything. They're still noodling with stuff, but she's got nothing going, which I am very happy with. And she's happy. But yeah, she did something. She did something a couple of years ago at DC. I forget what that was too, but Brittany was her editor on it.
I don't remember either.
But she's wonderful.
Let's
come back. We're running out of time. This has been so good. Let's come back to witching season. This ends when November 13th, right? So is that a Thursday at 10 p.m.
We usually end on Thursday.
Thursday at 10 p.m. November 13th to get your backing pledge in for this thing. I mean, it is this cover, Sky Patridge is so underappreciated. I think they're phenomenal. I was super happy to see them. They did this action. They had run an action earlier this year that I was like super excited for that. This is a big. I think this is a big step for you guys. I think this is a big all encompassing. It's your biggest event. What has been the biggest challenge for this up until where you are right now?
I think that growing pains are always a challenge. We talked before about not biting off more than you can chew and kind of having natural growth. And I think, a big part of this year has been, leveling up the production side of things, and that also involves admin, that involves fulfillment, that involves working with other people. We talked about Michelle having been partnering with her on a lot of different projects. We also have brought in some people to help us in the fulfillment and the admin, emails, convention organization side of things. So that's been a little bit of a challenge on our part, where we're, especially me, control freaks a little bit, and loosening the reins so that we have time to do the important creative stuff and make the connections with fans and fellow creators has been a challenge. And just time management in general when you're doing a lot of projects and having to keep a billion jillion things on your mind at any one time. It's something we're still learning. We have 50 different Excel sheets spread all over the place with dates, and you have to have this by this date, and then this is the actual backup date if you don't meet this date, and losing track of them. It's been a challenge, but I think it's something that we're continuously rising to the occasion of. I think we have a really strong plan for 2026. We have some really big things we're really excited about. And then, like you said, witching season's, right in front of us, such a feat. And, we're amazed at the names we were able to get on it and what we were able to pull off on that. And, we always like having the next thing on our mind too. It's like, oh yeah, we're really excited about this, and then we're really excited about this thing that nobody knows about yet. So
that's because it's our own personal carrot and stick. If you finish what you're doing now, you can go on to the next cool thing that you really want to do, and then you'll be at that position again with that next cool thing. So we are our own carrot and stick. That's
absolutely.
On a last note, I want each of you to tell me which story you can't wait for people to see in witching season. But it can't be yours.
Can't be ours. Okay.
Because I'm looking forward to the Witches of Oz one. I think that's going to be fantastic.
We are excited about that one. I'll start us off. Kat, you can give me the signal. I am very excited for people to read Move, Cast, Break Things. I think it's the third or fourth in the line on the page, and it's written by Day Irwin, who we've worked with on Transphoria and Aces and Arrows. I think those two, and now Witching Season. And then the art is by Miranda Munt, and it has a comedic element to it, but it's definitely not a comedy. It's like a horror story, but it's satirical, and Day has such a sharp sense of humor that I really like. It's part of why I've really loved working with them on the past few anthologies. And as someone who spent a good amount of time in corporate America, this is a story about witch CEO who pumping out Not Your Grandma's Witchcraft and
commercializing done a lot of corporate America.
And there's such pointed corporate speak in there that I've sat through for years, and it just gets into my gut, and the horror of it is really cool too. It's a 6-pager, and it uses the 6 pages really well. I'm very excited for people to read that one.
Awesome. How about you, Kat?
Mine is Witch's House. It's a story, and I'm not born in the 80s, but we've seen enough nostalgia stories where you're like, what can you do differently with this genre, I guess you call it? And this is about 4 boys who see a house on the side of the road, and they're like, this looks creepy, and you have some twists and turns of what happens in the end. And also Andrea Daly, who's kind of up and coming artist who's been a rising star, is on the art for this. And I really think it's a special story that you're going to see 5 years from now and be like, oh my God, Francis Stokes and Andre Daly, I got to read their short before they became big. I genuinely think both of them are going to become bigger creators on Kickstarter very soon. So they're both hot selling a lot. So that's like my favorite thing. And again, is the up and comers. So this is a really cool up and coming story, which again, they have a property already. It's not like their first story, but they feel like they're on the cusp of something really big.
You two sound very strongly like you're having a swell time doing it. And that is the attitude that comes across to the readers. Now, in an anthology, maybe on some stories, maybe not as much as others. That's okay. That's great. But that enthusiasm for doing this stuff that 10 years ago was thought of as too obscure to do, I admire that.
Thank you.
I think
appreciate that.
we always want to be very excited about what we're putting out. I think that's the through line of what we do, is that, we don't want to do anything just to do it. We want to do it because it's like something that we personally are really excited about. And that extends to this project. That extended to the comic shop, which was the property that just ended. We both really liked Cheyenne, who was the brain behind the comic shop. We liked the property. And then obviously our own stuff that we write, we're obviously very passionate about. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, comics, if you're in comics, you have the passion for comics. Otherwise, you wouldn't put up with the elements like, starvation and stuff. So do great comics because that's what you're getting out of it. And that's fine. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thanks you guys for being here. We're very excited about this project and all the rest. There's another one. I mean, there's something that's launching in next week too.
The week after,
2 weeks after.
Our Witches of Oz, our third issue, tying in maybe with
Awesome.
the release of a certain movie. Who knows?
Fantastic. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We're going to continue to follow you, and we'll have you back whenever you want, and we can talk about some more cool stuff. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I thank you two for your commitments, not just your talent. And talent is great, but your commitments.
I think our talent is our commitment.
That may very well be true. That may very well be true.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you guys for
Thanks,
being
folks.
All right. Thank you guys. All right.
All
Bye.
right. Bye. Take it easy. Fun stuff.
Well,
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see anthologies making something of a comeback, at least.
Sure. That was everything I expected it to be, and everything I hoped it to be. I'm, again, as I've said, huge fans of theirs. We are gonna have a show next Tuesday. We will be back here. I'll give you this. The person we're gonna have has another Kickstarter that's coming up soon, and you can go ahead and back this. It's Smut Volume 1, a Slice of Life comedy. I think this is I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, the guy who's going to be here is Wells Thompson. And you'll have fun because he's from Chicago. So there's that.
Maybe not, because once again, after 50 some years, I'm thinking Chicago, tear gas. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time since you had to go. Hopefully it'll be another 50 years since we have to get to that.
Oh, it's been less than 50 years, just 50 years in Chicago.
No, that's what I meant.
I've had more in Washington.
No, I understand that. Right. So next week, same time, same pop channel, same pop time. We will have Wells Thompson on the show. We'll talk about whatever else happens in the world between now and then. And hopefully everybody stays warm and has a great Halloween.
All right. Thanks, folks, for being here. As I always say, we always appreciate it. And thank you for being so active in our chosen medium.
All right.
And by active, I mean just supporting it and loving it.
All right, everybody. Thanks. And remember to read more comics. They're good for your soul. And we'll see you later.
All right.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?